Hello guys. This is Sanjay here. I hope all are doing good. So basically, first of all, um, so sorry for being uh, giving so much of gap. So I had some work basically. So we'll continue with the atomic structure topic only. So we have seen the discovery of electron. Before that, we of course saw some basics of atomic structure, what is matter, and the Dalton's atomic theory, and the discovery of electron. What did this J.J. Thomson do? What did Michael Faraday do? And finally, what did Millikan do? How did they find the E by M ratio? What's the mass of electron? What's the charge of electron? Everything you've seen in the first video. If you have not seen the first video, please go and check it out. And so we'll go next into the next discovery of the atomic particle, which is the proton. So actually, we saw in the previous video about this electron. Okay, here the same setup was there here was for proton also. The only change he did was, in electron he put a hole in the anode part, right? Here he put a hole in the cathode part. So what did there the experiment was done by Michael Faraday. So here the scientist is Goldstein in their 1886. Okay, so he performed this experiment in the cathode ray tube at the cathode ray the cathode the cathode metal plate, right there he put a hole. Okay, actually, so what is the result basically? So he observed a new ray streaming behind the cathode. Okay, so we'll basically think like the cathode rays went originated from right cathode to anode, right? Cathode rays. Here we would think it will go from anode to cathode, but that's wrong. Its origin is not from anode. It actually was like a new ray streaming behind the cathode. If this was experiment, and this is the cathode, right? If you put a hole here, the rays were streaming into the perforated hole. So there he found he named it as basically canal rays actually. So canal rays or anode rays, okay, both are correct. How did he find that it's positive charge? Because it deviated towards the negatively charged plates. It's obvious when we keep battery kind of thing, it deviates towards negatively charged plates, whereas if electron deviates towards positive plate. And magnetic field, a charged particle always deviates in magnetic field. This you will study in class 12th. Okay, I've said little about this in the first lecture. So if you have any doubt, you go and check it out there. So it of course a charged particle, if it enters a magnetic field, it deviates. So that's what happened here also, according to the rule of magnetism. Okay, so thus he confirmed that it had a positive charge. The rays had positive charge, and of course it had materials in them also. That is, it had some mass. Okay, so what it did was one more important thing was here. When we saw the electron, the cathode rays, it did not depend on the nature of gas present. Okay, but here this this you've seen right here, do not depend upon the material of electrode, okay, or nature of gas. So these anode rays did depend upon the nature of gas present. I'll explain give a little idea. So basically, if you take hydrogen gas in the tube, okay, now that we know it has only one proton and one electron. So experimentally, it was observed that the positive ions formed from hydrogen. Okay, that those were the positive rays, right? The positive rays from the hydrogen ions basically were the positive rays, which forms when it loses electron. Okay, so we'll come to know in the due course. So if you take hydrogen, it came out to be that the E by M ratio was very lightest means it's very very small for E by M, and below that it could not go with any other gas. So Goldstein decided that let this be the basic fundamental of the E by M ratio. But what happened when we take different gases, this E by M ratio varied basically. So it's actually how, because every atom has different proton rate. That's what he concluded from the experiment. Every atom did have different number of protons. So it did come to the discovery that the E by M ratio varied basically. So because of this is a little idea given by Goldstein, that if you change the nature of gas, for example, if you change hydrogen to some helium or sodium gas, so whatever, so if you change it, the E by M ratio varied basically. So the E means it is a charge of the proton, okay, that is of course constant. For one proton that was constant, and that was when he calculated the this ratio. I mean, actually when he took the hydrogen, it was it was the lightest, okay. So this E by M ratio came out to be this value, okay, 9.5 10 to the power 4 coulomb per gram. And the charge, of course, we know it is just opposite that of electron. And so if electron has negative charge, and proton will have positive charge, okay. So 1.6 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb charge electron has, but negatively charged. And positive, this is the convention, okay. So positively charged, same magnitude is same. So using this, he also found the mass. Mass came out to be for one proton, okay, 1.67 10 to the power minus 24 grams. So this, as actually if you calculate yourself, it will be some 1800 times times mass of electron. What was mass of electron? Was 9.1 10 to the power minus 31 kg, which is 10 to the power minus 27 grams, okay. So it is basically 1837 times the mass of electron. So thank God that no other details of the experiment was given. Like for electron, we did Milken's-Royaltrap experiment, and we also saw some properties of the materials of the cathode rays. So we need not go much into this. So this basically is the charge of proton. Now comes the twist, some trickier part, I can say. So generally people did know that atom was electrically neutral. Okay, everything in the world, if it has to exist on its own, it has to be neutral. Our body is neutral, or else if it was charged, if somebody would touch us, they'll get shock, right? So basically what I am saying is, everything in the world is neutral. So atoms was also neutral. So if there are electrons and protons, okay, there should be some neutral particle also. So you can say that electron protons, if it was an equal number, then particle will be neutral. That is right, okay. But experiment, when I'll say the James Chadwick, actually his name. So when he was doing the experiment, he found there was also some other particle which has no charge in it, and has the mass which has this magnitude of the proton itself, nearly equal with that of proton. So that was basically, that was basically a neutron, okay. That is basically neutron. So a neutron and proton have some same kind of charge, similar charge. I'll say the exact number. So when he was doing experiment, what was the experiment, I'll say. So next particle was neutron. So neutron was discovered, as I said, by James Chadwick in 1932. He did a simple experiment by bombarding a thin foil of beryllium. Beryllium is hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, fourth element in the periodic table. So he bombarded it with a fast moving alpha particle. Alpha particle is what? It's helium ion with loss of 2 electrons, okay. So helium has only 2 electrons. It loses the 2 electrons to gain a 2 plus 2 charge on it. This is the alpha particle. So what was the reaction? See, beryllium, which is atomic number 4. So you should have read it in 9th standard, okay, how to represent an atom, and atomic mass of 9. It means that it had, I'll say later, okay. So helium helium-24. Helium-24 means it's actually the alpha particle. Okay, so even if it loses the 2 electrons, representation would be same, right? Do you realize that? Because electron does not have that much mass that it would vary the property itself. So he bombarded this alpha particle on beryllium foil. He got, carbon 612 plus neutron 01. These kind of reactions are called actually nuclear reactions. I'll just say how to balance this. It's actually balanced. So if you see, the mass number would remain same both sides. 9 plus 4 13, 12 plus 1 13. Similarly, this one, the atomic number means the number of protons, that will also remain same. 4 plus 2 6, and this also 6 plus 0 6. Okay, so he got carbon atom. So carbon atom means it 4 plus 2 6, right? So this electrically it's neutral. It has no charge, but had 1 unit of mass. Okay, so this is actually how the neutron was found, and it is assumed that neutron divides to give proton and electron. You would read this in modern physics in class 12. Everything you will read basically. So do not worry if you don't understand. I mean, like, if you don't understand something, you can ask in the comment section. That different. It's different, but in deep, if you don't understand, you need not worry, because it's the starting of 11th. So you will learn it slowly in the due course of time. So it assumes that neutron divides to proton 1 1 and electron this one. Okay, 1 minus 1 0, 1 plus 0 1. Okay, so it's assumed that neutron is divided into proton plus electron. So it's just assume. So that's it, guys. So easy. So for information, I would say. So basically, electron, proton, neutron was found. Important subatomic particles. Mass same as proton, slightly larger. Okay, slightly heavier at it. So neutron is slightly heavier than proton, and for proton, if you see, it came out to be 1.67 and 10 power minus 24, right? So here, right, 1.67 10 power minus 24. Here it will be some 1.675 into 10 power minus 24 grams. So some slight difference, but neutron's heavier. Okay, so other particles, if you see, other particles, you can say positron. What is positron? Basically, this is electron only. Okay, but it will have a positive charge. So everything is different when you think. It would be, so in chemistry I would say, like, do not generalize anything. I keep on saying that. So positron is electron with a positive charge. Electron we see generally have negative charge, right? So the positron has a positive charge in it and no mass. Okay, this is positron. So, and there is something called neutrino, and something called meson. Meson only, it has many divisions. So there's something called antiproton. So this you just know the names. Okay, Jay does not ask questions about this. So if you want, I'll say what is at least what is it. So if you take a neutrino, it is actually it is actually so funny. Okay, so it does not bear any charge, neither neither mass. Okay, so no charge in it, so it represents this electron 0 0. Okay, and meson, if you see, there are different types of meson. Pi meson, there are different type of meson like that. Pi, in Yukawa, there was a scientist Yukawa in 1935, some recent days before some independence, 10 years of India. Okay, so he found the meson particle. And about the antiprotino, it has mass equal to that of proton, but has a negative charge. Okay, so it bears an unit negative charge. Okay, suppose this is X, bears unit negative charge, but has charge that similar to that of a proton. Okay, so it's antiproton. So there's no necessary, just know the names, okay? So they will not ask question, neither boards, okay? So this is about the subatomic particles in this chapter. So next comes the atomic models. So first comes J.J. Thomson's again plum pudding model. Funny thing about this, that is we now know that J.J. Thomson's model was proven to be wrong. So I did not write that actually. So it's so easy. He told that it is like a plum pudding model or watermelon model. You have seen watermelon, right? Watermelon, how it is, it has the flesh is pink color, okay, inside it, and seeds are embedded in it here and there, okay. So he told that as atom is electrically neutral, so it should be electron, like electron was compared to seeds, okay. So like seeds were embedded in the watermelon flesh, similarly seeds was also embedded in electrons were also embedded in the atom. So now we know that's this is absurd, okay. But the irony is he got Nobel Prize for that, okay. Yeah, I hope I remember. Yeah, he got Nobel Prize in 1906, okay. So you actually at that time it was a big discovery that he gave some atomic model, okay. So he told that atom possessed a spherical atom was a spherical shape whose radius approximately 10 power minus 10 meters, which is 1 Armstrong, okay, in which the positive charge is uniformly distributed. So the flesh part in the watermelon, right, it was the positive charge, he told, and the negative charge of the seeds which are embedded in the atom. So he told that, and thus a stable configuration. In chemistry, remember this for a lifetime, at least for these 2 years. More the energy, less the stability, okay. So I'll give you some example. If you are more energetic in your home, will you be in your home, or you'll go to play, or so roam around the streets? You'll definitely go to the play or whatever, just roam around, but you'll not sit in the home idle. But if you have less energy, you just want to sleep and take rest, right? So the same happens in chemistry. Everything in chemistry wants to be stable, thus it should have energy less, okay, in it. So as atoms are neutral, they are stable, okay, they have no energy in them. At least there are equal energy of protons and electrons, equal distributed, hence neutral. So he told that electrons are embedded into it more or less uniformly to give the most stable electrostatic arrangement, okay. So this is a simple model of J.J. Thomson. And the one more important point here is you have to know only two things, okay. Positive charge is the flesh part and negative charge is the seeds part, okay. And thus the electron was electrically neutral, the atom was electrically neutral. And also you have to know that this model assumed that the mass of the atom was uniformly distributed over the atom, okay. He also assumed this also. So however we know that this was wrong, okay. So next came the famous Rutherford's nuclear model. So this we have to explain in some detail. It was famous experiment during that time in about 1911. So actually along with him two other experimenters named I'll write it over here. So before we going to the Rutherford's model, I will say some introduction. So these are the 5 models for the atoms given by different scientists. So I've said that J.J. Thomson's plum pudding model, it was something like this, okay. This was the positive charge. Okay, and negative charge was like the seeds of the watermelon, okay. So and he assumed that I'm repeating again. He assumed that the mass was uniformly distributed over the atom. That was also a blunder, okay. So but he even got the Nobel Prize. So of course it's so difficult to do these experiments and find it out. He did not speculate the model, but still that was a wrong model. So next came the great Rutherford, and the story about him was, the story goes like, he did not work hard to find the results. His I think it was students or he was a teacher, okay, something like that. I think Rutherford was the teacher, and I mean like in a higher level, higher cadre. And the two more scientists, I said right, the name I will say. Their name were Geiger and Marsden. Okay, you just know the names. Okay, so they actually did this experiment full-fledgedly. So what was the experiment basically? See, this box, it gave it behaved as a source of alpha particles. What are alpha particles? I told right, helium 2 plus. So that was alpha particle, that were alpha particles, and they were allowed to go and meet at a gold foil. Okay, gold foil is this very thin. And why gold was chosen? Basically it was a compact, a solid metal, known at that time. And so it is allowed to pass through the gold foil and intervened by a lead plate, because first things is that I'll say after the models. Okay, there's something called radioactivity. Okay, so radioactivity causes harm, there are these alpha particles, radiations are actually harmful. Okay, so the radioactive radiations, alpha rays, gamma rays, beta rays, these are all harmful. Okay, lead is the only one of the most known metals which is able to absorb the radioactive radiations. Hence they use the lead plate to not to spread around the this experimental setup, and preventing from harmful radiations, preventing the scientists. Okay, so that was basically, and a small hole was kept over here, so that the rays were concentrated over the gold foil. And as usual, as usual we saw in cathode ray experiment, right, this photographic plate was coated with ZNS. Okay, ZNS. If these rays strike this point at different points in the photographic plates, light beamed out. Okay, so this was basically experimental setup. So what did he observe was the rays went right. So about 99% of the rays passed undeflected, means it went and struck this it passed through the gold foil and strike the photographic plate and then strike back. Okay, reflected back. Okay, that was very shocking result. Okay, observation. Very small fraction was deflected by small angles, means after going through the gold foil, only very small atoms actually it went through like this. Okay, went through like this. Many atoms many rays did go undeflected like this. Okay, very small fraction did go deflected. Okay, and 1 in 20,000 bounced back, means it went and struck. Okay, and it bounced back again. Okay, so nearly to angle 180 degree. So this was very shocking results. Now comes the drawback of the Thomson's model, which I did not say. So because here only you would understand. So he told that uniform mass distribution of the atom was discovered by him, right? So which means as I said, radioactive these alpha particles, alpha rays are radioactive in nature. Radioactive nature means it has high penetrating power. Comparatively, at least gamma rays has most penetrating power. That's different, I will say, in radioactivity. But alpha particles is, as these are also radioactive radiations, it also has some penetrating power. Okay, so that should have, even though if it is repelled by some positive charge in it, it can pass through the atom. Okay, which means most of the rays should have passed through the atom. Okay, so sorry, it should have actually, see, this is basically the positively charged watermelon model of the Thomson's model, right? So this is basically the model, right? So when alpha particles went through it, due to the this negative charge, some should be attracted, and most of the positive charge, as it is here, right? So most of the alpha particles coming near to this atom should actually repel, right? So this is the basic thing, right? So this is the positive charge here, and alpha particle is also positively charged because it's helium 2 plus, as I said. So it should, most of the rays must be repelled, means it should be deflected by small angles, but we saw only small fraction was deflected by small angles, right? So that was wrong. That was the main drawback of the Thomson's model. Hence uniform mass distribution and charge distribution was observed. Okay, you can say observed. Okay, so that was the main drawback of the Thomson's model. So now Rutherford concluded that most of the space in atom is empty. Okay, that's why many rays passed undeflected. Okay, and some positive charge is concentrated at center in a very small volume, which he named as nucleus. So some positive charge is concentrated at center. Okay, that is why small fraction was deflected by small angles. So if this was an atom, only small portion was a nucleus, so many rays passed through it undeflectedly. Okay, undeflected. When some rays came near to it, it got deflected like this. Okay, got deflected like this. Okay, and only 1 in 20,000 rays reflected back, right? Means it straightly went and striked it onto the nucleus, and it reverted back. That was the main catch point here. So this he named as nucleus, and it had a positive charge due to the presence of proton in it. Okay, so that is why small fraction was deflected by small angles like this. Okay, deflection, and 1 in 20,000 bounced back. Okay, bounced back 180 degree, and because many rays went undeflected, only few rays went deflected by small angles. He concluded that the volume occupied by this nucleus is very, very small, means compared to this volume of atom. Experimentally, he found that the radius of the nucleus is somewhere about 10 power minus 15 meters. Okay, that is 1 femtometer, and the radius of atom was about 10 power minus 10 meter, just 1 Armstrong. So some 10,000 times smaller, right? So you can imagine something like a big cricket ground where where in the center you keep a that ball with which you play. So like that he compared the atom. So this was basically the observation and drawback of Thomson model and conclusion of the Rutherford's model. Okay, so now comes these if you write in a board exams you get marks, and some diagrams and extra these fittings you can do. And the main postulates were like positive charge is concentrated in a small region called nucleus. So that we saw right now only, and this is the important point. Nucleus is surrounded by electrons which move around it at high speeds. Okay, so this is the atom, and nucleus is here, electron were here. Okay, it goes in so high speed that the attraction of the alpha particles coming towards the atom is not at all seen. You understand, right? Electrons are there, so it should get attracted, right? But that's not seen because electrons move very, very, very high, move in a very high speed. And you have read about centrifugal centripetal force, right, in 9th standard. I will say a body moves in a circle, it experiences centripetal force towards center. Okay, so electron, if it moves in a circle, it experiences a centripetal force like here, and also electrostatic force. Electrostatic force again is a force between two charged particle. Okay, plus q and plus q, you read in 12th standard. Okay, so just a basic idea I'm giving. This is a proton which is positive charge, electron is negative charge, and this should have electrostatic force of attraction, right, which is actually balanced by the centrifugal force. Okay, so you will not go deep into it, so understand that the centrifugal force is balanced by the electrostatic force of attraction. Okay, so this he termed as nucleus, right? So around the nucleus, electrons moved at high speed in circular paths called orbits, in orbitas. So it was compared to sun, the planets moving around the sun like this. Okay, so like solar system, the model was like like solar system. Hence the model was also called planetary model of atom. So this is the Rutherford's model. Nothing difficult. You have to know these. Most of the rays pass undeflected, which suggested that most of space atom is empty. small fraction was deflected by small angles, which suggested that some positive charge is concentrated center in a very small volume. Okay, 1 in 20,000 bounced back, which suggested that the rays directly strike the the center of the atom, which is the nucleus. So simple experiment of the Rutherford. Okay, so I think he also got Nobel Prize for that. So now I'll speak something about radioactivity. You will learn it in chemistry also, physics also, so not that much important. So basically, in order to be stable, okay, I already said that everything in the world needs to be stable. Okay, so in order to be stable, actually what this atoms, this certain elements do, they emit radiations on their own. Okay, it happens naturally so that it becomes stable. For example, if you see the atom elements in the periodic table, if you go higher elements, okay, they will emit some radiations. Why they will emit some radiations? Because the n by p ratio, means the neutron versus proton ratio, that would not be 1. Okay, so the neutrons, if you take a helium what 2 4, right? Helium means it has 2 protons, 2 neutrons. And if you take for example, what we can take, so helium, if you take carbon 6 12, right? 6 protons, 6 neutrons. Almost if you see some up to some elements, this neutron proton ratio will be same. But if this neutron proton ratio is less than 1 or more than 1, the elements do emit some radioactive radiations, which can be in the form of alpha rays or beta rays or gamma rays. Okay, so the properties are also there. I'll say some properties. You will read this in your nucleus chapter. There's a chapter called nucleus in your 11th 12th standard modern physics. Okay, you will read that here. So this is highly penetrated. Okay, highly penetrating. So this is somewhat, you can say like that, alpha, beta, gamma. Okay, less moderate, you can say like this. So, and at these alpha rays, I said, right, helium plus 2 charges, so this is positive. Beta rays is nothing but electron. Okay, so it's negative. And gamma rays is neutral. Okay, so you need not worry if you don't understand. Just I'm giving you some idea. Alpha rays means it would emit in the form of helium 2 plus nuclei. Okay, in beta rays means it would emit electrons. Gamma rays is some neutral radiations. Okay, it is highly energetic. Okay, it has, if it has high penetrating power, it should be highly energetic, right? That's obvious. And the mass of the this is negligible, and these have some definite mass. And so that's all. You need not worry about this, how they are radiated, what is the reactions happening. All you will read it in your 12th standard. So simple thing, this was found by Henry Becquerel actually. So certain elements which emit radiation in their own. Okay, and this phenomenon is known as radioactivity, and the elements which does this were known as radioactive elements. Okay, so that's all you need to know. If you want, I'll say one thing. Okay, so these gamma rays, right? I say gamma rays. They are actually high energy radiations like X-rays which you see in your hospitals. Okay, and these do not consist of any particles. That is the main catch over here. Alpha particles means it consists of helium 2 plus nuclei. Beta particles means it's negative charge, means electrons. Okay, but gamma particles does not contain any particles. Okay, gamma rays. So that was about radioactivity. And unit of radioactivity is Becquerel. There are many units. There are also Curie. There's also a unit Curie, which is named behind the famous scientist Marie Curie. So that's all you need to know. Okay, so these are the atomic models. So what did we see? So we saw the discovery of proton over here. Okay, this discovery of proton over here, and then discovery of neutron. Okay, how the neutrons, the reaction behind the neutron discovery. and then atomic model where Thomson's model was discussed, and Rutherford's model and its observation and drawback of Thomson's model, conclusion and main postulates. Now drawbacks of Rutherford's model. There's also some drawback here also. So up to this you should have studied in 9th standard, so that I'm rushing up. So if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section. I'll answer. What was the drawbacks was, there was some the famous scientist known as James Clerk Maxwell. Okay, he said that any body, if it accelerates, okay, if it moves, it should emit some radiations. Okay, so that basically, if you see any charged particle, you can say, so electron is a charged particle, right? Negatively charged. If it moves around the nucleus, as suggested by Rutherford, it should emit some energy. And by nature we know that if even you run up to 2 to 5 kilometers, you'll be tired and sit up in one place, right? Similarly, electrons should also, if it keep on rotating, revolving around the nucleus, it should come to some rest and fall into the nucleus. And experimentally it was determined that this time which was taken for the electron to come to rest was very less. Okay, some seconds or less than that. Okay, that was the basic drawback of the so if it was so, then electrons do not exist, right? So it always, electrons and protons do exist, nearly. Okay, so nearby. Okay, protons will exist always with the electron. Okay, so this Rutherford nuclear model, right, it was a small scale solar system, as I said. So there we said the electrons moved in orbits. Okay, however, when a body moves in orbit, okay, we actually it undergoes acceleration, that I said it. So this electromagnetic theory of Maxwell, which we will read again in 12th standard, so it said that the charged particles, when accelerated, emits radiation. Okay, so that if it emits radiations, it should eventually come and fall back to the nucleus. Okay, I will show the picture of that. Okay, so this is the picture basically. So it falls, it rotates and finally falls into the nucleus back, so that the atoms would shrink. So then atoms must not exist, right? So that is not happening. No, that is not happening actually. So that was the basic drawback of Rutherford's model. Okay, so now, and we'll continue with the some theories led to the discovery of Bohr's model. We'll continue in the next lecture. Okay, so take care guys, and do share it to your friends. And okay, fine, thank you guys. Okay, bye bye.